Welcome to Recross the Paths. My name is Cade, and today I'm here with An. Welcome, An. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm really excited to dive into a couple things here with you today. You've got your cube that I'm certainly excited to talk about, but also some of the writing you've done about it. So maybe we're getting a little meta to like the thinking about thinking stage, but I'm excited to do that here.
Yeah, you just hop straight to it. You don't. Who needs to think about Q when you can think about thinking about it?
That's right. We don't want to get too lost in the actually doing it. But no, I was really encouraged, reading some of what you shared about seeing what some other people had done through writing about their own cube journey and then how that inspired you. So I think it's nice to see this thread of inspiration in a way.
Yeah, I think that's something that I really found in writing, and especially cubes, like tracing sort of the lineage of cubes, like, oh, this cube is inspired by X, Y, and Z. And for my writing, I love sources, mostly because I'm nosy and want to figure out what people thought about. And like you mentioned, your podcast and Zoidnaut and about their blog about their cube really inspired me. So very much a continuation of that lineage, I guess.
That's so encouraging. Well, before we get too deep into that, and why cube for you? What drew you to this creative outlet?
Yeah, so magic I originally learned about sort of ironically as like primarily a digital format. My first encounter with it was when I was sort of a teen age. One of the YouTubers I watched was talking about playing Magic and started playing through Duels with the Planeswalkers. I was like, oh, that's a way I can interact with Magic. So I played through the solo adventure of that, and that was how I knew Magic as a solo digital game.
Excellent.
And then once I sort of graduated college, moved out for a full time job on my own, away from most of the friends I made in college, away from where I grew up, I was like, I need to see people in real life who I don't work with. I need to get out of my apartment. And I was like, well, I enjoyed Magic when I did it. And at this point in college, I'd played some Magic Arena, but I also very much treated that as like a single player digital format, essentially, even if I was theoretically playing against real people.
Yeah, they're kind of a faceless foe, as it were.
Yeah. It was like, oh, I can do paper magic, and this will be my way to get out and meet people who I don't like work with or already know and get to know people. So I started with Commando, as is quite common, but I found that I really liked limited as an environment. Like my favorite things to do in Magic were I like playing Commando, but I really like doing pre-releases and that sort of
Yeah.
limited environment. One of my favorite things I found in Magic is like just getting a bunch of parts and seeing what I can assemble with them. And that really limited really felt like it captured that.
Yeah, was it kind of like the discovery aspect of like, experiencing something new on the fly?
Yeah, experiencing something new on the fly, but even with parts I maybe knew, trying to figure out how I could assemble them in new ways and find like small synergies or make something with whatever I had, both in like the macro with like deck building, but also just like when I'm playing a game, like what did I draw? Do I know what all these cards do? What can I figure out? Can I figure out how to make them all work, even if they're new and unfamiliar? Was something that really attracted me.
Do you find that that's true in gameplay? Like, is it like you want a novel experience game to game? Like, so you're kind of averse to tutors, perhaps?
Yeah, when I played Commando, I never really played Tutors, and my favorite decks in Commando were decks where I would describe them as having like 10 sub themes and no real theme. So anytime I played the deck, I'd draw my hand and be like, oh, these cards go with this sub theme and also kind of this sub theme, and we're gonna piece it together so every game felt different.
So, not that you have to sell me on it at this point, but it sounds like you already were primed for Cube to fulfill a lot of those desires.
Yeah, it really worked out well, honestly. All the
So, how did you get into Cube from like a commander and arena and duels of planeswalkers background?
Yeah, so I don't know exactly when I learned about Cube as a format. I think probably around the time of when I started playing Arena, because pretty early on, from my recollection, they had like Arena cubes and things, and I would see those go by and not play them because I didn't have gems to play. but I would understand that. I probably saw it as like understood that as a format. And it's like I enjoyed doing drafts and stuff when I could assemble the amount of gems I needed on Arena, but it was very much a very occasional treat. So I always knew Cube existed, and going into Cube was directly sparked by wanting to build what is now sort of my main cube, the An Cube. It originated as a commando deck, actually. So even before that, the Card Market YouTube channel does a bunch of shorts, and one of them, one of the main hosts, is named Carl. And one of the shorts they did was like, oh, if you want a fun birthday gift for your friend, go on Scryfall, type in their name, and for Carl, I think it's like Skull and Thrynax or something, and code with Carl in the name. So that's like a fun gift. I was like, oh, I could do that. But like my name's just AN, so there's probably a lot of codes you can do that. I can probably do better than just a single code. Probably make a whole commando deck. And I found out, yeah, I could.
Do you know what the count is on that, or was at that time?
At that time, the count's quite high. I believe when I was building that commander deck, it was around 5,000 cards.
Oh my goodness.
And I think now it's closer to 6,000.
That's pretty prodigious. So many.
Yeah, so I built a commander deck, and like that's actually what I found. The commander deck was helmed by Animal. Like
Very good.
yeah, I was like, Animal is a very powerful commando, and I acknowledge that. But this is a silly theme. Turns out, Animal and Ancestral Statue still go infinite in a very silly theme.
Yeah, and they both start immediately with the AN.
Yeah, but it was like this is a three-color deck, and I was like, I feel a little bad because I was sort of cheating with the land base. I said the non-basic lands I want to be able to cast my spells, so the non-basic lands can be not include Anne. But I started feeling like, I don't like that. Maybe I should go monocolor and just have like mono blue islands.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna ask A and D island, right?
Yeah, but also like Animo's three color, but that's still just red, green, blue. And I actually am primarily, I would say, an Orzhov player. Like that's the color pair I really gravitate to when I don't know what else I'm doing. And there's a bunch of like black and white cards I'd love to play. But going five color when I'm already feeling sketchy about this three color mana base seems like a disaster. So what's a format where I can have all of these colors and play with all of these cards? And so naturally I thought of Cube.
That's a really exciting transition. Well, so on, give us the elevator pitch for on Cube. What is this now?
Yeah, so Cube is basically everything I like in Magic. So it's in the codes, no strong theming. It has sort of a mystery booster field where every code pretty much could stand alone, and you gotta figure out how to synergize them together. Power level, I would say, a little bit above retail limited, somewhere around like one of the old Masters sets. And every card in it has my name and in it.
That's such a cool restriction, and the fact that there's like sufficient number of cards to do that in a way that's not just a gimmick, right?
Yeah.
So did you? I mean, you clearly said you started with the naming restriction, but where did you go next?
Yeah, so this was obviously the first cube I built. This is the first cube I really like looked at. I didn't really know what I was doing when it was built, so I like went on Magic the Gathering has that article from Melissa Ventura about like how to build your first cube, and they give kind of like ratios and like here's how many of each color you should have. Here's how many non-basic lands you can have. So non-basic lands, we really scrape in the bottom of the barrel. I tried to first start building the cube probably a year before I actually like went for it because that was before Modern Horizons 3 had come out. And Modern Horizons 3 brought all the landscapes, which really,
Oh my goodness, that had to be a godsend.
yeah, it really fixed a lot of the problems because the first time I tried looking at the lands, I'm like, this is a disaster.
Did you try to put it together as like just asymmetrical land cycles, or use what you got, or you're thinking
No,
about cheating in a way?
no, I pretty early on knew like if I'm gonna build this, I like spreadsheet aesthetics. I want everything to look even and nice. And I know now that's like a false sense of balance, but for me, not knowing what I'm doing, like this seems like a good restriction to start with. So at that point, I just sort of like forgot about it. And then like a year later, MH3 had come out and he's like, we can make this work at that point. So the answer was I gave up. I was like, nah, unimpeachable difficulties.
At the risk of deviating just a little bit here, you have a background in like sports analytics as well, right? So spreadsheet, aesthetic, and cube seems to flow kind of naturally.
Yeah. So I've done sort of a mix of things. I have a web app for helping people sort of map event data is probably the thing I'm best known for. I've also done work creating sort of data visualizations for women's ice hockey and a bunch of random assorted products. So aesthetics and like how things are presented are very important to me.
And so that seems when you're building a cube that some people are like, just put in whatever cards feel right. But it
Yeah.
sounds like for you, it's not going to feel right if it doesn't match, a structure.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people talk about when they're building their own cubes that there's an element of themselves in it. You've kind of taken that to an extreme here, and we see that certainly in the naming. What other elements of yourself do you see in this project?
The biggest one is sort of the cards I select. So I mentioned earlier, like one of my favorite things in Magic is sort of getting a bunch of cards and figuring out how to piece them together. So cards I've selected to be able to mostly stand on their own, but there's no real like strong synergies. Like the synergies I have are ones that are should be very easy to achieve. Like please cast spells, please draw cards, or like those stronger synergies that are more specific are things I already like to do. So I really like token strategies generally. So there's a lot of tokens. I don't tend to love graveyard strategy. So there's not a lot of graveyard stuff or less than you might see. But everything's sort of trying to be a more generic puzzle piece that you can fit together because that's what I most like to do.
So with that in mind, do you find that when you draft the cube, are there lanes or themes that folks fall into, or does it feel like you're building from a variety of pieces that weren't built together?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I do put in some cards knowing they fill a specific thing. Like, there are some cards I'm like, oh, this is good for a more spell slingery aspect. This is good if you want to go aggro. And I would say it's always a mix of people building decks where I mostly expect to, and people building decks where it's like they found a small theme that I didn't expect. And that's always really exciting.
Yeah, when your players do more than you thought was possible.
Hmm.
I would love to talk on about your goals or maybe your restrictions, however you want to think of those together, because you have this
Hmm.
really great outline in your overview that with very specific bullet points. Can you speak some to that and how you came into those?
Yeah, so besides the big overarching naming restriction, I mostly fell into them. I would guess organically is the best way to put it. So, how I built the cube was laborious and I can't recommend it, which is that so I started with non-basic lands and figure out what I had there. And then for each color, I went to Skyfall, put in the name restriction, the color, either creature or non-creature, and sorted it by most recent to like oldest card. And I literally just went through Skyfall for every page.
For 6,000 cards.
Correct.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one to recommend for others.
Yeah. So it took me like probably for each of those sections, probably like 90 minutes, just like skimming codes. By the time I got to the end, I was like, these older codes, I mostly will know if I want them or not. Otherwise, they're probably not the sort of power interest to me. But it was like, I would just reading, I guess.
Did you find that in that process you were seeing like the same kinds of words over and over again, or did you notice patterns in that process?
Oh, yeah. Like all good first cubes, my first one was very imbalanced, and there were a lot of angels. White was the best color by like several miles.
Do you think that also had to do with that being was that the color where you started, just kind of going in Wooburg order?
Yeah, I think my first deck I built on Magic Arena was when Arena came out, and it was like Rivals of Ixalan. I built Orzhov Vampires. So like that sort of black white life gain sort of invasive very much fell into that.
so, so you have now analyzed thousands of cards, like considered many, many, many of them.
I looked at them. I can't say I considered all of them.
You have been in the presence of many cards.
Yes.
And then, how do you narrow that down from the initial draft?
So the first time I was just like, okay, what cards seem neat? And like, do I think made sense in cube? Because I knew like I'd built some commander decks. Like, okay, the cube should probably have like kind of a curve, I guess, and like some balance between creatures and non-creatures. And I knew removal was going to be a big thing because I knew removal and cerebrals were big in limited Magic when pre-releases. So that's just sort of like how I pieced together my first list. I was like, I want kind of this ratio. I was basically used the same ratios I knew from deck building. It's like, oh, roughly this amount of creatures, roughly this amount of non-creatures, kind of want this amount of removal. And otherwise, it was just creatures I thought might be interesting in this context. And as it turns out, creatures I thought might be interesting were really like creatures and like, this feels like it can go somewhere. Let someone else figure out where it goes.
I think there's a fun in that. Like, it's like putting craft supplies on a table to see what other people can build.
Yeah, we refined the process a bit from there, thankfully. So I don't have to just stare at pages of cards anymore.
So did your set of goals, like your descriptive goals, come from that initial process, or was it something that you came about here later on?
Defining them came later on, but looking at them, all of them pretty much existed in that very first iteration. I knew I wanted it to be eternal. I didn't see any reason to restrict the card pool any further besides the name restriction. I always loved True Singleton as a concept. Like, the one thing I didn't love about Limited is like seeing the same card over and over again because I always felt like, oh, that's a card I could have had something else here and could have made new and exciting things with. And then I love playing with paper cards. I only sleeved my cube because I brought it to work was the first place I bought it because the reason I like restarted trying to build it after abandoning it a year before was one of my coworkers had brought in his Lord of the Rings cube and I was like, "Oh yeah, I was trying to build a cube at one point." But all my coworkers refused to figure out how to play it if it wasn't sleeved and shuffle it. I was like, "Fine, y'all." But I'm leaving it clear because I really like Magic cards as like a paper physical presence, and this is the closest I'm getting.
No, see, this is kind of amazing, and you have the opportunity in your workplace to share that at the right time, I imagine.
Yeah,
But like, how many people struggle to find a play group or to find interested parties, and like you kind of have that pre-built in a way.
yeah. I'm very thankful for them for sort of like bringing me in and deeper into Cube and hobby. It was very lucky that I sort of got that hook and reminder to sort of relook at it.
Well, I love the restrictions you have and how thoughtfully you've laid them out. Like you mentioned, certainly the naming restriction. You
Mhm,
wanted the eternal card pool, true singleton. You've labeled heart of the cards. You said like no tutors
mhm,
besides some land fetching. Cards are one dimensional, so not
mhm.
doing double faces. Talk about leeches are good, actually, quote unquote.
Yeah. I think this is coming from starting on Magic Arena made me realize I didn't want to have to track these things in paper. For me, like I knew I wanted all sorts of varieties and types of things to be happening, but I had also like played at pre-releases, like I played at the Lord of the Rings pre-release and did like ring tempting. I played at the Aether release and then did speed. I'm like, those are great for the limited environment when you have exactly one thing to be thinking about and keeping track of.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Which room of the dungeon are you in? What's your speed? Are those foretold? Are those on an adventure?
Yeah. And I was pretty set on if I wanted one of those like emblem things to track, it would be Ascend because like I mentioned, I started it in Rivals Ixalan was like my big return to Magic digitally and sort of seeing new sets. So Ascend has a very special place in my heart. So I was like, if there's a card that's gonna make an emblem, it's gotta do something with Ascend and the city's blessing. Otherwise, we can't keep track of anymore.
I appreciate also that within this, you've outlined these goals here, but then you also, in your overview on the Cube Cobra page, you've separated the spot for drafters. I
Mhm.
think there's something thoughtful about that. Of like, this is something that designers will care about. And if somebody's trying to, I don't know, spike this cube for whatever reason, or they just want to know what to expect going in, that here's the section for you that's separate.
Yeah, I want that because I am a filthy casual who doesn't read other people's overviews. Because I like the surprise of Magic. Why would I want to know what's in the cube and what's in the list?
That certainly aligns with what you described earlier, right?
Yeah.
Like you want this fresh experience, and
Hmm.
it would not that it would spoil it. Like, well, maybe that's the thing. It's like it would spoil it if you read everything up front. Like, oh, you should
Yeah.
look for these things or do these things.
Yeah. It's really a wild take for me because I don't mind spoilers in like movies and stuff. That I'm like, no, Magic is must be a pristine experience, but here we are.
And are you the kind that will like read the plot of a movie before you watch it?
Oh yeah. I don't like watching movies in general, I've found, but I will always watch a movie with director's commentary. We're circling back to the meta thing. I love hearing other people's thoughts on a movie, but if I have to sit down and watch a movie, I'm sort of like, eh.
That's amazing. In something like that type of entertainment different from sports for you? Is it
Yeah.
because like sports is emergent, maybe?
Yes, like I do a lot of sports analytics and things like that. So people are like, "Oh, you must have like a very data-driven way of watching sports." Like, no, I like to describe it as like I watch sports like I'm a toddler. I'm looking for like bright colors and movement when I watch sports. I do not think about like wins and losing when I watch sports. It is just for movement, colors, entertainment value, but I do not think about it.
That's really interesting. Just to be nosy there, like so then the analytics side is kind of after. So it's like watching the game is its own thing, and then thinking about it is a different exercise.
Yeah, I think it came from I didn't watch sports growing up. Like that was always my dad and my sister's thing. They watched a lot of baseball growing up. I wasn't so much into it. I didn't start following sports until I was in college actually. And the sports that I sort of fell into were like European men's football and also ice hockey, both of which were not local to me. And because I didn't grow up watching sports, I didn't know how to like watch games. So I like followed box scores and stats because that's how I knew how to experience games. And that's sort of where I fell into the analytics side. So like now when I like go to games, it's very much like that's a very separate experience to how I experience sports through data. So yeah, they're very separate for me.
So then with something like Cube too, do you separate as a designer the play side from the design side, or are you always thinking as a designer while games are happening?
I try not to think so much as a designer unless I know the designer will want that kind of feedback. So like in my like local cube group, there's some designers who very much want that kind of feedback. One of them does what he calls like the post match interviews where he'll like ask you for your draft pool and like pull out cards and like what did you think of this one? Will your sideboard? Why didn't you play this card? So I know they'll want that kind of feedback. So I try to keep it on, but otherwise I find them very different experiences in what I want. Like I remember when I built commander decks, I would often, if I ever built a commander decks, I'm a big net decker for standard whenever I play on Arena now. And even for commander, when I built a deck, I would build it online and then not build it in paper for like 6 months. So by the time I actually played with it in paper, I didn't remember what cards were in it.
And the meta may have shifted too. So,
I mean, in commander, it doesn't matter.
oh sure, right. I guess you mentioned in standard, so I was thinking like,
Yeah, and in standard, I mean, I'd pull a deck list based on kind of the name and wouldn't look at the deck list and be like, all right, let's go.
it says aggro on it. We know what this is doing.
Yeah. So for me, those experiences do tend to be separate unless I know that having both will be valued by the designer.
One of the things I wanted to ask about was you don't really have any particular limit on uncards or like any particular type of card so long as it fits your goals. Is that something that players have been pretty receptive to?
Yeah, I don't think there's any on codes or sort of like just codes there at the moment, just because there haven't been that many that interest me in the code pool out there. But yeah, players have been reasonably receptive to that. Like on one hand, this cube is very silly, but also on its own, it is just like a cube or like an cube, I guess. Like there's nothing super special about it. So I think if I put one in, it'd probably be more measured just because I think that's what fit the cube, and players are like, yeah, this sort of fits the sort of environment.
Well, yeah, and I guess I was thinking something like you have a conspiracy in here as well.
Yeah.
I mean, just elements that it's not like it feels out of place. And
Hmm.
I think I would push back that this isn't like a special environment. I think the way you have come about it, and the restriction being so unique, but still yielding something that is interesting and playable, I think that's worthwhile.
Yeah. I would say it's special to do as a designer. From my player perspective, there shouldn't be too much that stands out for it. Like, you can notice the restrictions while playing, but probably the one you would notice most is not the name one while playing, is what I've found. If players like look through the cube list without reading the overview to see all the restrictions, the main thing they notice is like, oh, why are there so many non-basic lands and things like that. And the name thing is very much more for me than anyone else.
Yeah, I think if players didn't know, I think it would be wild if they were able to pick that out as the through line.
Hmm.
But when you know it, it is really remarkable to catch how much variety you can find within that.
Yeah. The way people pronounce cards when they're playing My Cube really accentuates.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One of the things that you do with your cube and then with your cube experience is that you write about it on a blog. This has been really encouraging for me to read. I wanted to kind of open that up to how did you find your way into this as an outlet?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I'm a software engineer, and I, for the longest time, was really resistant to the idea of making like a blog or a post on a website because it felt like a lot of pressure. Because I am very picky about how I want things to look, and I also didn't want to make it.
Yeah, kind of the separation of work and hobby.
Yeah. But at one point, I came up with an idea for this sort of writing, this blog post essentially I wanted to do where I was interested in creature types and was like, why are creature types ordered the way they are? And from sports analytics, a lot of my friends had done projects involving sort of elo ratings is a not uncommon thing where they use that to rank. Often it's like players or like games is like this is sort of like a ranking system if you think about how things are ordered. Maybe I can apply it to this, which is not very statistically sound. But I was like, I want to know the process of making elo ratings, and this is a fun concept, and know the data is out there, so why not? And I should write about it. But then I was like, where am I gonna put this writing? And I sort of cycled through a few existing formats, but none of them felt right. I was like, oh no, that means now I have to build the website to house this. So I was sort of like writing the blog post and doing the work for that in tandem with building this website, and the website very much fed into exactly what I needed to make this blog post and vice versa, and they both sort of came up simultaneously.
Yeah, and these are the things you've written, particularly the Elo article, but these are pretty substantive pieces. It's
Mhm.
not just like, here's my thoughts for the day. It's like, this is a research project with the full
Mhm.
bibliography of references and formulae. It's a really involved process.
Yeah. I don't exactly know how it happened. It happened over the course of like a week where I didn't do anything else.
Kind of woke up with the full article completed.
Yeah.
So one of your subsequent writings was really kind of a self-reflection on the Cube.
Mhm.
Do you feel like that was kind of the exercise of definition for your project that you talked about, or is this like refining ideas?
Yeah, so it really came out of a discussion on the MTG Cube Talk Discord. There was a lot of discussion about the big discussion was about singleton and breaking singleton and what's the difference between having slightly different versions of what is essentially the same effect. And that was something I thought about a lot because I had pretty instinctually fallen into true singleton. It's like, yeah, this is how I want to build it. And it made me start to think, is that really what I want for my cube? And at the time, I was sort of going through Discord, I was trying to like update my cube overview incidentally. So I was like, while I'm listing out these restrictions, I should probably think about like why do I have them? Like, because they came up so organically, like, are these still serving the organic roots they came from, or is this breaking them something I wanted to explore? And that's pretty much where that article came from.
Did you find that you were wanting to challenge any of your own ideas through this process, or did it kind of serve to just affirm what you already felt?
I think because the nature of the Cube is it's more than anything from design fiction about the things I like in Magic. I was pretty sure I wasn't gonna end up breaking any of them because they align with what I like, but sort of defining exactly what I like and telling myself to be like, can you put this to words was really what I was looking for. So I didn't expect any major shifts, but to just like feel out the borders and exactly why was what I was looking for.
No, I can appreciate that because I know often you have this sense when you look at a card, you know whether yep this is for me or no this isn't. But to be able to actually express it is incredibly valuable.
Hmm.
You also do on your blog, which I guess we should probably mention, is called An Odd and an End, which is incredibly clever. You have cube draft reports that are really remarkably detailed. Like, do you take notes during your events and then convert those to these posts, or are these kind of reflections after the fact?
So for the first one, I didn't take any notes because I didn't really know I was going to be doing it. My lone group drafts on Wednesday night. I've been told by Jonas and we were like the latest draft group we've ever seen because we start at like 7:30 p.m.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So normally I'm like going back at like 11:30 midnight and I would like randomly like type up my recollections after that. For subsequent ones after the first one, I started actually taking notes, mostly to let me delay writing it up so I can go to bed.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Wise.
But also because I found I mostly remembered what happened during the cube, but I would often mix up exactly when. So I would remember like moments, like, oh, I know there was this board state and my opponent played this card, but was that this opponent or this opponent? When did that happen? And I wanted to be able to record that. So I often do take like bullet point notes if I can. Those often just like a lull of waiting for other players to finish their matches. I'll like go on my phone and quickly type up some bullet points of anything I want to remember of just like phrases to sort of remind me of what happened. And later I type up the report from that.
So, do you think of writing these reports for yourself to kind of think back on the event, or is your hope that there are lessons here, ideas for yourself or other people in the future?
Mostly, though, for myself, I started them because I generally enjoy cube reports as a form of like entertainment. I mean, as I talked about before, I mostly separate designing cube and playing cube. And like when I hear about other cubes, like it's always fascinating to hear about it from a design perspective. But most of how I'm going to interact with these cubes is going to be as a player, like presumably almost all of the time. I'm not going to build a cube exactly that same way, but I might play it.
Yeah.
And having those drafting words feels like the way I would want to experience it. So having that written down is part for me to sort of be able to relive that. I've been told by the designers the cubes I've written up, it's often useful for them to hear sort of a player's perspective from that front. I think there probably are design lessons, but those are not the intention for me.
Do you have other types of things that you're interested in writing for something like this, or is it just kind of an open canvas for whatever comes up?
It's mostly an open canvas. I have had some thoughts. Some of my thoughts is about building more cubes in my experience with those. I have some ideas for that. I've thought a lot about like different ways I could have built the N cube besides the way it's built. Those like definitely like a power maxed version with like ancestral recall and mana vault and mana drain and things like that.
Of course, you get mana, so you're gonna get all the good stuff there.
Yeah, I think I've like looked through the cards and there's a really busted reanimator package because all of like the good old reanimation spells are like reanimate, dance of the dead, necromancy.
Nancy, yeah,
Yeah. And then you
that's amazing.
and then you just reanimate Gristlebrand and you win. It's easy.
This is This is such a fun experience for me. I don't have a good word for that to say. Like my brain is lighting up in ways I haven't thought about because as soon as you say the card name, you recognize, oh, that's in there. Like that AN is in there, and then you start thinking, what else is in there? Like this had to have been delightful to go through.
Yeah, one thing I found that like I definitely didn't expect when I started bringing my cube out to Google Booth is everyone starts thinking of cards once you present the restriction to them. Like even people who like so really like would never want to design a cube, but they're like, oh, but this card could go in. Have you thought about this card? The Spider-Man previews have been a lot.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Avatar The Last Airbender also a lot from that. But it really makes people think about codes in that lens, which I feel like is super fun and unique and not something you get from other like restriction cubes. Like you can think about like Lucky Radio and Anthony's Turbo Cube. Like that's a very cool concept in rock, but I don't think I would ever look at a card and be like, oh, that would be busted in Turbo Cube outside of that context. But
Right.
people are very happy to look at spoilers and be like, huh? What do you think?
Yeah, I bet your inbox just explodes at every spoiler season, like
Yeah.
folks doing the searches.
Yeah, the real downfall of the Power Max Cube is the lack of removal. But if you don't care about removing your opponent's combos, then it's fine. Don't worry about it.
It'll probably be okay, right?
Yeah.
You just play a bigger thing than them.
And you can like Titania Zoanol them out. Easy.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
So, and what advice would you want to share with other designers as they consider their own projects in light of your projects and also how you're writing about them?
I, in sort of all things, am a proponent of any idea is worth 1% of getting it out into the world and shared with people. This was a big thing when I was working on sports analytics. Like the thing we always tell people is the perfect idea is worth so much less than you putting something together and sharing it. And that's a big thing for me with you is like almost any configuration of code you put together and share with people will both be more fun and more valuable for you building a cube than trying to like agonize over a list, which is one the only reason I thought building a cube by literally staring at Skyfall was a good idea. So don't go that far. But I very well could like have these draft reports for myself, and like they are for me, but I show them because I like people being able to see them and getting what they want from it. And Cube, I view very much in the same way of the main goal is to just get something together I can bring to people. So just not being afraid to share whatever you have, even before it's in a state where you think, oh, it's quote unquote ready to be shared.
You know, I had somebody describe that idea as don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a solid word. Well, as we are trending toward wrapping up here, I do get to ask you one of my favorite questions, which is if you could have any card printed as a promo, what card would you pick and who would you have do the illustration?
Yeah, this is the one question I thought about, so you'd think I had an answer. So, sort of in two minds. So, my favorite magic card that I've encountered is Revelation, which is an old world enchantment. It's just one green, and all players play with their hands revealed.
Okay, so it's like telepathy in a way.
Yeah, a little bit. Because I loved in Commander in particular, but I also loved in just 1v1. Because for me, Magic is all about the discovery and looking at cards. And with Revelation, I just get to know what my opponents are doing. And we both get to have the experience of figuring out what both you can do and what I can do. But it has very good kind of, I'm a huge sucker for anything stained glass.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'd want to promote that. And for the artist I'd almost only want is an artist named Chris Riddell, who is a sort of author of children's books. So like my big like formative children's book series growing up is a series called The Edge Chronicles that Chris Riddell illustrated. And his illustrations are very evocative. They're all like pen lines, they sort of remind me when I've seen old like D&D monsters illustrated third edition. It's a style very reminiscent of that. So I'd probably want him to illustrate something, but the art definitely doesn't match Revelation. Like he would be more suited illustrating like an ogre or a that kind of vibe.
Yeah, your description of like the D&D handbook sort of thing is just about spot on. It's really evocative, flowy line work.
Hmm.
A
Yeah,
lot of it's in black and white. Uh,
yeah,
Really cool.
yeah. So I think I'd want something illustrated by Chris Dell, and probably just something that can go in my hue, but I'd probably for it to be a surprise. I don't know if I have a particular preference on what I want it to be.
See, here we are again, going on theme.
Ah, yes, we always make it back, professionals.
That's so good. The joy of surprise.
Hmm.
Well, An, this has been delightful, and I'm so grateful to you for taking the time to walk us through your project, to talk about just some of your experience and your passion here. This has been so fun for me.
Yeah, this has been really fun.
Well, if folks want to follow up, they should certainly read your blog, which
Mhm.
the URL for that again is.
An odd and an end.com, and probably Cade will link it so you don't have to rely on me saying it.
Yeah, I did want to say it again though because it's so clever, and I will certainly have it linked. But if folks want to follow up with you or follow any of your other projects, where's the best place for us to have them go?
Probably best on Discord. I'm pretty active on the MTG Cube Talk Discord and sort of the content areas. My blog has links to other ways to reach me, including a Blue Sky, which I don't check that often, but I will after this podcast, I promise. So if you try to reach out to me there, I'll almost certainly see it. I think my blog also has other places to reach me. If you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, don't, but it is there.
Yeah, if you're trying to reach any of us on LinkedIn, that's something's gone wrong, perhaps.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much. This has just been a delight, and looking forward to more blog posts as they come out, and looking forward to more opportunities to connect in the future. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me again.